I haven't pooped yet. I always like to poop early in the morning. I think that's the best way to start your day, right? Has there ever been a successful revolution where the Revolutionary Party has not achieved some modicum of political power through electoralism first? The answer to that is no. Well, I mean, it's not totally true. Usually, sometimes there are revolutions have like a lot of different sources. And I think in the American context, we will not have some of the other sources. Like, we're not going to have a military revolution led by left-wing military officers, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that has happened a number of times throughout history, but most of the time in those situations is a decolonial project, like a country that's a new nation that's like decolonizing. And when you're resisting imperialism, there's a tendency for the left to become a lot more militant. And therefore, in a post-colonial phase or a decolonial phase, the left has like a lot of military connections. In America, we don't, which is one of the CIA's most intelligence ops, is to make sure that leftists are like resistant to bringing in veterans, which is one of the dumbest things about American leftists today, is that they don't recognize that fighting and revolution is a military skill. The military occupation of the District of Columbia, which is really bad. That's a bad thing. And the fact that people aren't freaking out about it more, is one of the signs that I think we're fucked. I am not a doomer, but I have to say that the fact that nobody, like, people are not angrier about this is really bad. And there doesn't seem to be that much protesting from the military itself. And a lot of institutions are just kind of falling in with Trump. They went right after the universities, and the universities have caved. So we're going to talk about that, the military occupation of DC. We're also going to be talking about a few other things, like, for example, the Republicans are scared shitless of the actual left. And they're like, come on, Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, please destroy the left for us. We can never beat the left. I think the one thing that the online left needs is a pipeline of people who are redeemed, but actually redeemed. Right? I completely disagree with you. I think the one thing, like, we watched the Internationale from China, right? Earlier this stream, like to start the stream. And if you actually study it, you will find that Mao, as a leader, believed in rehabilitation over everything. People kind of think of Mao as like this hyper evil guy who was just like killing people wantonly like a psycho. And then the reality is that actually is not true. If anything, Mao was like a kind of too nice. Other people killed people in China, without a doubt. There was a lot of pissed off, but a lot of that was like grassroots shit, like tenants rising up to kill their landlord and shit. That's not something Mao was like, yeah, kill your landlord. He just empowered the local tenant farmers, and they were so pissed off that their daughters had been like raped or starved to death that they got revenge. That wasn't Mao's doing. That was like the empowerment of the peasants in all individually getting revenge. Like,
从来就没有什么救世主，也不靠神仙皇帝，要传 福全靠我们自己。我们要夺回劳动果实，让思想冲破牢笼。快把那炉火烧得通，是人才能成功。
The point that I'm trying to make here is I do believe that people should be given grace. I do believe that people should be given second chances, because if you try to create this like ever spiraling purity, like even the most fundamentalist religious person believes in redemption. Redemption is like one of the most beautiful ideas that we have. I like the idea of people turning over a new leaf and people abandoning bad for good. Like, if you abandon redemption, then you're abandoning yourself. So I completely 100% disagree with the idea that people shouldn't be able to redeem themselves. You know, I do think there are certain behaviors that are beyond redemption. I do think that there are certain behaviors where a person, if they does them, should not be in a leadership role or a public role. But I still want those people to be forgiven and given an opportunity to, you know, just live their life as a good person. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want people to feel like, well, what's the point of going to the left? They're never going to accept me. I want it to be the opposite, which is the left has great vibes. The left will accept me. All I need to do is be a better person. And I want people to have a path that they can walk to be a better person. And I don't want that path to be unsure. I don't want that path to feel like there's a million tripwires and there's a million traps and there's a million like secrets that you can fall into, you know, and like, I feel like a lot of the rad lib left, that's how they are. They like to set up tripwires because it's an interpersonal game to demonstrate how much more woke they are than everybody else around them. I don't want that to be the world that we live in. I want it to be a world where you and I can be better. Here's what it comes down to. Accountability and empathy only hurt people. What we lack is concentration of these ideas. You want them to treat them like the last emperor of China? Yes. I think that it was a good thing that he was rehabilitated. I think it was a good thing they didn't execute Pu Yi. Like, they could have just taken him to the Forbidden City, hung him by the neck until dead, and left his rotting corpse over the arch. And everybody pelted the guy with like fucking rotten fruit until his body fell apart, right? Like, they could have done that. And in many ways, they would have been justified in that. But they decided not to do that. I think that shows like that they're at the next stage of human evolution. They're at the next stage of development of what morality is. Good point. Can we also allow bad people to have the label of being gay or trans too? I personally kind of feel it infantilizing when people try to make it seem like trans people can't be bad and bad people can't be trans. I'll give you the perfect example of a bad person who's trans. ContraPoints. Now, ContraPoints did propaganda for a Zionist genocide. And I roasted ContraPoints, but I also respect her pronouns. I respect her gender identity. But it's not transphobic to refute her Zionist propaganda during a genocide. Brianna Wu is a Zionist genocide defender who's trans. I respect Brianna Wu's pronouns. I respect Brianna Wu as a valid trans person. But they are still a really bad person. Nick Fuentes is a Latino man, but he's still a white supremacist, racist Nazi. Candace Owens is an anti-Semite fucking bigot. She's a black woman. Blair White is a transphobic trans woman. These people could be members of marginalized identities while still, nonetheless, needing to be criticized. And I'm not going to like back down to criticize someone because of identity, because the conservatives are very bad faith. They're happy to take advantage of that shit. They're happy to silence people. They're happy to play id poll games to win. I find the radlib id poll approach to politics infantilizing as a whole. I might be out of touch in this case, but it's my personal impression. It's because it is. Radical liberalism is about destroying class consciousness and distracting you with bullshit to divert away from the fact that the primary core of all of oppression is class identity. Trans people are disproportionately likely to be poor because they are excluded from our capitalist society. So if you leave capitalism unexamined, then you're going to leave the systems of oppression that deny trans people, for example, access to healthcare. Medicare for all will help trans people if Medicare for all includes trans healthcare, which, I don't know if you know this, but Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all policy included reproductive health care for all. That includes abortions and long-form reversible birth control and gender treatment. So if you support trans rights, if you support women's rights, then supporting Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all would do more to advance those causes than just saying don't criticize ContraPoints because they're trans. And I will never shy away from critiquing things that I think are problematic because of the identity of the person saying it. And I don't think that you should listen to people who are right wing. Like, for example, I criticized AB. AB is half Lebanese, right? He's half Lebanese. And he's outright supporting Ethan Klein's Zionist genocidal propaganda program. Should I allow him? Or the guy from the Atlantic Council, who's a Palestinian, who's out there, spreading Israel's propaganda for a paycheck. Should I not criticize him because of his Palestinian ethnicity? That would be fucking crazy. And that would be people abusing your moral sense. And because you oppose white supremacy, they're abusing the fact that you're against racism to make you not criticize people doing actual fascist actions. That's rad liberalism. By the way, so when you and I say crime, we mean antisocial behavior, right? That's what, like, when a leftist says crime, what they're really referring to is antisocial behavior. So what do we mean by that? We mean like taking somebody's personal property, threatening violence, committing violence, defrauding people, abusing people, whether it's physically or sexually, emotionally. We mean abuse of power. We mean corruption. We mean, things like that. Antisocial behavior, basically where a person victimizes other people for their own individual gain. Okay? That's what we mean by crime. What do conservatives mean by crime? Conservatives mean anybody I don't like. Visible poverty. People trying to speaking back to their betters. That's what conservatives mean by crime. They don't mean antisocial behavior because conservatives celebrate antisocial behavior. Like, for example, cops abusing their powers and violating your constitutional rights, violating the social contract. That's a fucking antisocial behavior, but conservatives love it. Conservatives don't give a shit about antisocial behavior. In fact, they want you to be more antisocial to the enemies they've named. They want to deny people due process. They want to deny people equal status. And so when we talk about crime or antisocial behavior and conservatives talk about crime, we're talking about completely different things. Like, you and I will see a statistic saying homicides are down 30%. And we'll be like, oh my God, we're making tremendous progress, reducing murder, reducing the harms that are associated with that kind of situation. And what do conservatives say? Conservatives say, we don't care. There's still poor people walking around. There's still black people walking around. I want to use the power of the state to target those people. They don't care about statistics. In fact, as Trump is showing you, they're destroying the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I wouldn't be surprised if they destroyed the FBI's crime statistics. They don't want to know what's really happening. Anyway, vice signaling is exactly all conservatives now do, which is why they root on people being bullied. Like if you watch Asmongold's stream, Asmongold's entire stream, I am the chatter. No, I am the chatter. All Asmongold's stream is vice signaling the entire time. It is, yeah, separate kids from their parents. I don't care. They're minorities. They deserve it. Yeah, I don't care if you genocide those people. I don't care. Yeah, do it. They're weak and their culture's inferior. Yeah, cut healthcare from those people. They're poor. They should be able to pay for their own healthcare. Like it all... Why should I have to pay? It's all the same shit. Although I think Asmongold pretends to support universal healthcare while hating every single politician that actually wants it to happen.
Mine eyes have seen injustice in each city, town, and state. Your jails are filled with black men, and your courts are...
I miss him so much, chat. I miss him so much. We love Michael, bro. Michael was like one of my best content creator friends. I would say he was my first content creator friend, was Michael Brooks. Criticism of Hassan or any other leftist streamer is healthy at best and irrelevant at worst. There are real issues in the political world. This parasocial stuff is irrelevant. I actually think that it's funny that you say that because you got it word for word from a streamer, which is like one of those ironic points where it's like you got that word for word from a streamer. That's not something that you came up with on your own. Every single word that you just wrote, you got word from a streamer, which is very ironic and interesting. And the reason why that streamer told you that is to aggrandize themselves, ironically. I'm not saying that leftist streaming is the most important thing, but it's like writing a pamphlet was 100 years ago. It's part of creating an information environment that is positively disposed toward the left. Right? And we should be criticized when we're making mistakes, but criticism for the sake of criticism and elevating criticism over actual praxis is worthless. And the other thing that's really funny is there is no doubt that my community and Hassan's community are some of the most impactful spaces online for actual left-wing organizing. You're not. I want you to understand that you are not. Like, I'm not saying that I'm against you doing shit, but this is a place where more people have been convinced to go and join their local DSA than almost any other place on the entire internet. Like, that's just especially when you compare like how many viewers and watchers I actually have versus the number of people who actually went and did stuff. There's almost no place on the internet where more people are watching my stream and then going and doing shit. Like, that's just reality. You're fucking wrong. And what you're saying is just meaningless. You're fucking meaningless. And we live in the information environment that is dominated by online discourse. And you are supposedly a left-winger tearing down the left-wing spaces. You're fucking stupid. You are objectively wrong. Like, where the fuck else are people organizing at 9 a.m. on a Thursday in the middle of the summer of an odd year for left-wing praxis in America? I'm so tired of this like dumbass fucking annoying internet only argument that the internet doesn't matter. Everybody who's smart knows the internet matters tremendously. They spend billions of dollars on internet ads. They spend billions of dollars on organizations like PragerU. They spend billions of dollars on media, internet media, streaming sites, and they fail because it's incredibly important, dummy. And where you got that, I don't know what fucking idiot told you that, but they're fucking dead wrong. Like, goddamn, it's embarrassing how stupid that is and how arrogantly you said it while repeating someone else. I don't know what social environment you're in, but you need to get the fuck out of it because it's stupid.
Yeah,
Underneath like all of the cockiness, it's like, guys, I really need this. I have no core. I need love.
Because of Mike and Hassan, I've become the vice chair of my local Amnesty International chapter. I'm starting a DSC, Democratic Socialists of Canada, and a conservative hellhole. This space honestly has effects. 100% would be a lib shit if I never found Hassan and then Mike. Yeah, these people are fucking dumb, man. Like, it's so unbelievable how people actually spread the idea that having propaganda for your own side is actually bad. I'm going to disagree on the part of that and say mutual aid and food should always do organizing. Mutual aid happens every day, especially in churches. It's not just identified as leftist by the people doing it. I am in favor of mutual aid and things like food banks and things like that. But like, that's not it's incredibly cringe to be like, well, you could be volunteering at a food bank right now. Most of the people here are working. And they have this monitor as a way, of interacting with left-wing education and propaganda. Like, what the fuck are these stupid points? These are dumb. These are dumb points. I can't believe you even believe them. Why did you say it? What motivated you to say that? What was going on in your mind? What did you think was going to... You're here. Why are you here instead of organizing IRL? Every hour you spend here chatting, like, why are you here? If it's so worthless, why are you here? Don't be rude to T-Blazin. No, I'm not talking about T-Blazin. I'm talking about... T-Blazin is totally right. It's a thoughtful point, which is... Yes, there are people doing mutual aid that don't even recognize it as left-wing. And that's because they don't lack political consciousness, which is what this stream is trying to build. The purpose of streams like mine and Hassan's are to create spaces where left-wing values predominate, where people could organize and educate themselves collectively, where we could form mutual aid organizations and push people toward real-life organization, praxis, and action. And then introduce new people to left-wing ideas who were never, ever introduced to them in the first place. Why do people think that only one activity is correct? I think part of it is about discrediting other people to elevate yourself, which is anti-solidaridistic to the point where if I see someone doing it from now on, I'm going to blacklist them. Like, I don't want to see it anymore. Like, we should be forming popular fronts. We should be working together. I do not want to see any more anti-solidaridistic behavior. It's outrageous. It's stupid. If somebody's making a left-wing show that I don't particularly like, you know, I don't watch them. But I don't run around trashing them. We haven't been keeping up on it, but we have a whole channel of Discord of people letting us know how you change their lives and how they organize their community. It's hashtag community praxis. Yeah, I know. I know. But I don't want to use the work that you guys do to aggrandize myself. I don't want to use the movements that I'm a small part of to aggrandize myself. I don't want to pull an AB where I'm like, I donated $10,000 to charity myself. You have to like me now.
Twisted. Remember I said I respect gun laws? I'm going to over-respect gun laws when it comes to black people.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, there's tiered systems. Arabs and black people get a lot of guns. Iranian people get the most guns because Iran, obviously, favorite country of the world. Hispanic people are sort of in the middle, so they'll get some. And then there's a tier system within the Hispanic. Mexicans, more guns. Puerto Ricans, more guns. Cubans, less guns. Fuck them. White people, you don't want a grand total of how many guns you get?
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. You got nothing.
For white people.
It's just the greatest joy of my life to watch those pale, disgusting, pasty faces fall into complete and utter desolate sadness as I take away not only their guns, but their culture and their hopes and dreams. I hate the white man. He's of the devil. He was made in a cave in the worst parts of Europe, produced from the lowest forms of humanity, And I'm so glad to bring him back to his proper state, enslaved to the black man.
Now, hold on for 1 second.
Well,
Hold on.
Akbar.
Stop the music. Let me just
Don't
ask this.
stop that music. I'm president, baby.
Chat, that was a character that Michael Brooks had called Nation of Islam Obama. And it's honestly a classic.
Hold on. What? Let me
All
just
right.
ask. Can you really do that via executive action?
I can do that via Super Islamo action, which is something you don't even know about.
I didn't realize that. I didn't know that.
Every
I'm not
time
familiar with that
I make
provision.
a public signing statement, there is a secret Quran on the podium.
Oh.
And that is Allah's law, which supersedes our law. I mean, really, to be honest with you, it's really Iranian law.
Full-on Iranian law, right?
Yeah, you know, the irony is that Donald Trump's right. We did negotiate a bad deal with the Iranians. From your perspective.
I see.
From my perspective, it's fantastic.
So basically, part of that, the whole nuke thing was that we now follow Iranian law.
Where's Salman Rushdie at? Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
All right.
Final year. Psych. Just getting started. Sultan on Panese, baby.
Okay. Well, we're
All
gonna
right.
head to
Well,
the
Allahu
phones.
Akbar.
Yes. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Watch the Bulls game. It's like having sex with your best friend.
Yeah.
Suck each other's dicks. Watch the game.
Those ones, and the Muslim ones are really funny because
Right.
he's like is the most boring technocrat guy,
Right.
And like,
Right.
Fuck, man. Michael was such a comedic genius above it all, you know? Not only was he good politically, he was also just funny. Which is where a lot of us fail. You know, a lot of us are very earnest, but Michael was smart and funny. And that is the combination. That's the ultimate combination, right? My favorite Michael Brooks moment is when he said to Destiny, "Sometimes I'm right and sometimes you're wrong." That was one of the funniest clips of all time. Sometimes I'm right and sometimes you're wrong. And Destiny just sat there blushing.
However, I would like to invite all of us into a fantasy world. And maybe when this video is released, a picture of President Obama will come up on the screen for an illusory effect. And we'll picture a Nation of Islam Obama and a meeting of different terrorist factions in the Middle East. Look, some people think that we only need to target suicide bombings at Shia. Other people think that Sunnis who aren't on the righteous path should be a victim of suicide bombings as well. But look, we can all agree that we need to have more suicide bombings. We can all get together behind a common goal of restoring the caliphate. And if we don't listen to each other, then the infidels and the great Satan are going to beat us. We need to take a pause and think more about our commonalities.
Aloha. How you doing, devils? This is Barack Hussein Obama. I just wanted to call and congratulate Michael Brooks, Michael Jamal Brooks, Matt Leck, Dave Slavic, David Grisham. You classed your first 1,000 patrons on Patreon. I knew that investing in you devils was the right call. There is a place that you can find for yourselves in the new Nubian Mecca we're constructing, just so long as you remember your rightful positions. Now, I've told you the secret plan, and I think you're all familiar. Other things you should know. Bill Cosby, innocent. Louis Farrakhan, secret Jew. We're going to out him. And Donald Trump, not part of the plan, but pretty fucking funny. So anyways, I want to congratulate everybody. Thank you. I look forward to more degrading of the white man and various socialist schemes that come out of your Brooklyn delusions before we create the next divine Mecca. And stay away from our women. I'm just kidding, devil. Enjoy yourselves. Until that moment, Allahu Akbar.
Well, let me be clear. The white race doesn't disappear overnight. But if you look at the longer trends, white mortality increasing, fewer white babies being born. Look, the devil isn't thrown back into a cave overnight. The arc of history is long, but it bends towards Sharia. So you do like just Obama is that dude, except it's all like
you have these bitter people in hip hop clinging to their gay mafia to try to silence people like Lord Jamar.
What Brother Jamar say is that when the gay Arati got into the hip hop game, see, a lot of these brothers, they're on the down low, and they come out and they talk like they run the game. Meanwhile, I know for a fact that he sucked Elton John's dick. So it becomes kind of difficult to take them seriously as artists.
Let me be clear. If there was a gay rapper that flowed, I would give him props. But there just has never been one. And there will never be one, I fear.
Look, can a gay rapper flow? Theoretically, yes. Practically, no. I haven't been this deflated in ages. I pride myself, and by the way, this is why this is being released as a podcast, not for my normal WB show. I've prided myself on never trusting the white devil ever. And that includes his films, his TV networks. We all know why Bill Cosby got caught up in all those charges. He was going to buy NBC. But I let myself fall into the devil's game and get excited about Black Panther, only to discover that Black Panther is a little Bill Cosby, pull your pants up bitch, who doesn't want to do a goddamn thing about international revolution for the black man, and then Killmonger's the motherfucking villain. It's bullshit. Haven't been able to get out of bed for a week. I still have my Black Panther costume, but I don't know whether to wear it or burn it. Hashtag Killmonger was right. That's what I was trying to do. We'll keep fighting. But you won this one, devil. You won this one, honky. Black Panther's ruined.
Here's one time I called into Majority Report and Michael Brooks trolled the fuck out of me.
Mike from Pennsylvania. You're here to suck my dick after you totally failed last night with your turn out the vote. I'm a depressed Bernie bitch and everything's going to be bad. And I can't read a poll the way John from San Antonio can read a poll, even with his eyes half closed. How about I smack in your fucking face or you apologize to me?
There's this other character. There's this other caller named John from San Antonio who... how do I explain John from San Antonio? John from San Antonio is a interesting character and a political savant, I think is the best way to explain him. In the fullest sense of the word. But we oftentimes would have disagreements about, the political prognostications. Okay? Political prognostications or his ability to read polls. My grounding is actually running polls, buying them, creating surveys for the various campaigns. I've done it about 6 separate times, so I'm not like the biggest expert, but I've done it a lot. Like, I know about polling, the decisions being made, how you formulate questions, whether you're doing phones, cell phones, internet surveys. I'm sure the technology has advanced in the 5-6 years since I've last done it. So I had a friendly, I would say, rivalry with him.
Or we could meet anytime, anywhere, any place. You fucking name it, Mike.
Thanks for that, Michael. I appreciate that a lot.
God. This show is becoming just like it's literally like just collapsing in on itself. I was watching this show, man. I was listening to this show, and a caller calls in, and then some Southern guy gets on who's mad at him about the polls, and I don't understand, like, why one guy would say, I don't.
John from San Antonio is Edgermentum? No way. John from San Antonio is a million times better than Edgermentum. What? No. John from San Antonio is 100,000% more competent than from Edgermentum. Edgermentum, as far as I know, has never said anything that I respected or found interesting. Whereas John from San Antonio has made plenty of good calls.
Tried to
back on July 17th.
I tried to listen to the show, but it's just like it's like a closed loop.
I said that Mike from PA read polls the way a blind person plays.
I feel like I was supposed to know who Mike
call in
from
the day
PA
after
was,
the campaign,
and then I had to know who John from San Antonio was, and why these guys don't get along, and they're talking about polling.
I feel like calling Mike the Washington Generals to my Harlem Globetrotters would be an insult because the Washington Generals actually knew what they were doing and were supposed to play a role. They weren't just terrible at basketball.
That's true.
Anyways, Mike from PA could shut the fuck up.
All right, well, Mike, what's up? We have 3 people listening now. What?
Oh, but those 3 people love it.
Those 3 people love
popular callers for sure, guys. So it was pretty good last night. Up here in the purple area of Pennsylvania, we slaughtered them and won our county executive races, one of which was a guy whose campaign I ran last year. So that's pretty good for me. He's now county.
Maybe I shouldn't play this. You know, I don't want to. I have too many freaks following me now. So we'll just keep the Mike from PA lore quiet. Nobody needs to know. The Generals knew what they were doing, LMAO. The Generals, Washington Generals, at least won a game. You know what I mean? Well, there was another Michael clip I was going to play. Oh, this is, yeah. And we can get back to regular news coverage here.
Hi.
Hi.
So my first question, it says
wait, before we do, you found it. My favorite ever clip.
Protectionism. Some of these cases you're wrong on. Some of these cases I'm right on. We have different interpretations. That's fine. But the broader argument about what this agreement is unavoidable. And that's the fundamental distinction. But I really do have to run. But we could do this again if you want.
Yeah, sure. I would love to go.
Some of these cases you're wrong on. Some of these cases I'm right on. But I've got to go. Bye. So basically, Destiny was trying to defend TPP.
My first question, it says on your Twitter that you're Jewish. Am I getting this right?
No.
Is it the right Twitter?
On my Twitter bio, it says I'm Jewish?
No, but like in your tweets. I don't want to be wrong.
I have Jewish background. I'm just trying to think of...
Okay, so as someone with a Jewish background,
yes,
how do you feel about Bernie's plan for Israel, especially as someone concerned with foreign policy?
I love it. It's absolutely necessary. My Jewish values teach me to oppose apartheid.
Okay. Could you elaborate, please?
I mean, there really isn't that much to elaborate on. I mean, has anybody ever been not only to Israel but also to the? Have you been to? Have you been to the West Bank? Have you been to Gaza?
Yep.
You went to Gaza?
I went to the border.
Oh, okay, but not to Gaza.
You can't be in Gaza.
Well, I know people who've gone to Gaza. You could definitely go to Gaza. So for me, my politics are built on a base of, economic justice and actually really like anti-racism, as in some ways as distinct from some of this sort of woke stuff in a way. But when I was already, I grew up, I was pretty connected to left politics, so I always knew growing up about the travesty that was the human rights situation there. And I knew that people I admired, like Nelson Mandela, said, South Africa is going to not be properly free until the Palestinians are free. In 2006, I believe, I read a piece by a guy named Tony Judt in the New York Review of Books, who was a really important Jewish scholar. And he just said, the argument was that, literally this is childish. The idea that you have an ethno-state or a religious state, if you're committed to any type of broad-based social, economic equity and civil society, it doesn't work. No matter how justified, right? Of course there's justification because of Jewish history for Israel. There's justification for Kurdistan because of Kurdish reality. There's justification for Pakistan. It's notable that Israel and Pakistan are both disasters. Israel not in the sense of, look, if you're a European Jewish background, you have a nice life there. If you're not, you are, even inside 67 borders, not a fully equal citizen. And the situation in the West Bank is, it is literally Jim Crow-like, and Gaza is, it's just an atrocity. So that's not something that anybody could reasonably ask me to support. And I understand, there's some actions from some Palestinian groups that, we can condemn. In fact, those have not even really been in any way seriously in play since 2003. And when we talk about, look, and the apartheid word specifically is both used by people who were crucial in ending apartheid in South Africa, like Desmond Tutu or Ronnie Kasrils, who served as intelligence minister under Mbeki, who I've interviewed. And the other main people who use the apartheid word are Ehud Olmert and Ehud Barak. So it is what it is. And I don't support second-class citizenship and occupation and sieges for anybody, no matter who they are.
Are you not concerned about the binary between either condemning Israel entirely, being also a
By the way, chat, listening to this questioner, I want you to understand that they are not in good faith, and I don't care what they say they believe, or they are a propagandist doing concern trolling language to advocate for a fascist apartheid government. And you should never, ever tolerate it. You never, ever tolerate this shit. There's no justification for apartheid. Apartheid is always justified based on safety. It's the same fucking arguments they've been making since the Confederacy. It doesn't suddenly work because they're Muslim.
That a lot of very strong and notorious anti-Semitic people agree with versus seeing this as more of a complex issue where it is wrong what's going on, and that there's also a way to do this, that Israel still exists and is supported?
So it's not a complex issue. That's the big thing. It's super simple. There's one group that has enormous power. It's the most powerful country in the Middle East. It's backed by the United States. It acts on another population of people with total impunity and is never held accountable for anything. So there's no symmetry in the relationship, period. And just as a thought experiment, IDW people, if we know that if somehow a population of Jewish refugees ended up in West Bank and Gaza, and an Arabic government in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv had an open-air prison in Jewish Gaza, which they bombed with white phosphorus, they killed civilians indiscriminately, and they had no provisions for medicine. They had an embargo that blocked food, that electricity wasn't running, that there was an over 48% unemployment rate, life expectancy and malnutrition statistics were horrifying. One of the major policymakers in this hypothetical Arabic Palestinian state said, we need to put those Jews on a diet. In the West Bank, there was another Jewish area where there was a little bit more autonomy, but there was regular Arabic settlements where they pulled up the Jewish farmers' foods, they terrorized them with rocks, the security forces broke children's bones, and they couldn't drive their own roads. We'd all have no problem understanding what that was. So there's nothing complex about it. The second part of your question, it's a pure asymmetry relationship. And the question is rights or not. So that's it. It's not complicated. The second part of your question, At this point, there's always going to be crackpots who are anti-Semitic who condemn Israel. That's not what drives the movement, particularly in the United States. If you work around most people who are concerned with this issue, it's actually populated with a lot of Jewish people.
I want to show you. Yeah, okay. Thank you for that link. I'm going to talk about it, Yami. Thank you. That's a really good link.
The real question we have to ask is, why is it that AIPAC is hosting a information minister for Slobodan Milosevic? Why is it that there's relationships between the Israeli government and far-right parties in Europe? Why is it that Benjamin Netanyahu's son is posting borderline alt-right memes? Why is it that Israel is an alt-right state, even though it is from the descendants of the victims of one of the greatest crimes in history? That's a serious question, and that's inseparable from the racism of the project, which goes back to the first part that we have to solve. But thank you. Shalom. And I am serious about it coming from Jewish values. Like Tony Judd, my reading, to the extent I do, which I actually do have some connection to that in a religious sense, it's unacceptable for me. But yeah, no, I know. We'll but it's not complicated.
Michael is such a king, and this was a long time ago, chat. 5 years ago. The genocide has been in the active liquidation phase for 2 years, but those of us who had foresight had these perspectives years and years and years ago. And this is why I miss and I value Michael Brooks.
I just want to add that thank you, and it's an immense honor to be here, including definitely with Dr. West, who is an influence on me. And one of the major reasons that he's an influence on me is because of that synthesis and the ability to hold multiple truths, that we have to have some sense of a capacity here to do something with democracy, and then also not lie and deceive ourselves about what we are and what capitalism is and what empire is. I came across a speech fragment from Martin Luther King Jr. recently, which I played on my show, and I don't know where or the title of the speech, but I thought it was so important because we've put a lot of work, and we still have to put work into reminding everybody that the man was on the left. He wasn't a guy who came out once a year and said everybody should treat each other nicely. He was a serious... But the other thing that I loved about this speech, which was he talked about the fallacy that certain Christians misunderstood love as a ceding of power. And then Nietzsche came along and rejected Christian morality because he thought it was denying someone's vitality, the will to power in a healthy sense. And he said, love without power is sentimental and anemic, and power without love is abusive and corrosive. I'm paraphrasing. And that was when I saw it, I thought, well, here, okay, we know the left wing Dr. King. Well, here's the Machiavellian Dr. King, and I love it. I want the left to have Machiavelli so that we can have the strategy, the ruthlessness, the clarity to actually win these battles and be ruthless with institutions. And then I want us to learn how to be really kind to each other, welcoming of a broad set, and
so do you see why the cancellation shit, why ripping other leftists apart because you have some minor disagreement is wrecker behavior and against the legacy of Michael Brooks? Comrades are called in. Enemies are called out. This is legitimately, this is what we believe here.
Actually have a movement that has the capacity to do that. That's why the cancel stuff is relevant that Katie brought up, because it's a stand-in for this eliminationism of other humans, which is neoliberalism enacted. And it's also a contradiction from when we get utopian. It's beautiful. We're the people who sit around and we say, why don't we have a world where there's no prisons? Okay. That's a radical fucking statement. That's a real thing, and we should take it seriously. But then, on the other hand, oh, well, these people could never be part of our coalition because they made a mistake or said something. Like, it's a contradiction in what we're enacting. So what I get that I hope is in the realm of answering your question from this Dr. King clip was left-wing, spiritual, but also with a vision of power. And if we can synthesize those things, I think we will speak to the highest impulses of this country. We will be welcoming to people, and we will win.
I think that these clips are so important to understand what Hassan and I are trying to do. And I think a lot of the people who are not around when Michael was around, because he's been gone for a few years now, they are not comfortable with the world that the communities that Hassan and I want to create are different than the communities that other people who are more inclined to inquisitorial perspectives are trying to create. You all aren't going to like to hear this, but socialist leaders that are a legitimate threat to capitalist order aren't celebrated on a capitalist magazine covers. Mamdani is burning AOC 2.0, that is redirecting genuine socialist energy back to a capitalist party that will kill it. Now, I want you guys to understand something. This is brain dead. This is actually brain dead. And I'll tell you why it's brain dead. Because the DSA grew the fastest from about 5,000 people to 100,000 people after the Bernie Sanders campaigns. The biggest ever day for DSA's growth was when AOC won her primary. The second biggest day for DSA growth was when Zoran won his primary. I want you to understand that nobody's saying that Zoran is going to elect his way to the New York City mayoral socialist regime. It's about creating a space for this type of politics to be discussed, where class-conscious politics becomes part of the conversation. We're normally shut out of everybody's mind. Most people have false consciousness. They do not know socialist theory. They are not socialist yet. They have the potential. They have the material interest. But what is your material interest is not necessarily aligned with your thoughts. And if you actually read Marx, which I am doubting a lot of people who call themselves socialists have actually read Marx, you understand that Marxism is a synthesis of idealism and materialism. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Is that ideas have power, but the systems that we live have influence on our ideas, and it creates a cycle called the superstructure and the base. In order for people to break out of the superstructure, which includes the culture and the ideas and the institutions that uphold capitalism, which is the materialist base of our productive forces, we need to have movements that create class consciousness and awareness of the nature of dialectical materialism, which is the idea that there are the exploited class of workers, the proletariat, and the bourgeoisie, the exploiters, for whom power in society lies. These are ideas. This is what Zoran is teaching people. It's baby shit. Yes. It's step one. Yes. But what the fuck do you think is going to happen? We're going to spontaneously have consciousness? It doesn't even make sense. We're not going to have a spontaneous. That is anarchist, by the way. That is anarchist ideas, is that we're going to have a spontaneous cultural and military and economic revolution all at once, all in the same time. Spontaneously. Because of the contradictions of our society, it's all spontaneously going to happen. No, it will not. Union workers make more money, and it doesn't matter if you're white or you're black. It doesn't matter if you're straight or you're gay. It doesn't matter if you are a woman or a man or an MB or trans. Union people are all better off. It doesn't matter if you have a PhD or you dropped out of high school. If you're in a union and you're compared to non-union workers in the same field, you make more money. Now, it happens to be that unions close the gender gap In fact, the single best way to close the gender and racial pay gaps is to be a member of a union. Studies find unions close gender and racial pay gaps, but it also increases the wages of a white man. So let's say that the average white man makes $100 an hour, and a similarly situated black woman makes $60 an hour. With a union, your wages will go up to $115, $120 an hour, and her wages will go from $60 an hour to $115, $120 an hour. So she doubles her wages. You get your wages up 20%. That's what the left is. So you're better off too. We've eliminated unfairness. We've taken money and power away from the rich and the capitalist class. And you're better off, and they're way better off. That's why solidarity works. According to the study, unionized women who work full-time make $1,067 per week, 64% more than women workers who are not in a union. In contrast, unionized men who work full-time typically make $112.16 per week, 16% more than men workers who are not in a union, who typically make $151 per week. You could see right here that non-union men make less than union women. In other words, non-union men make less than union women. Black households that have a union member have median wealth that is 3 times the median wealth of non-union black households. Solidarity, class politics works. Even if all you care about was fixing racial disparity, you should be focusing on class solidarity. The benefit of being a union member is even more pronounced for Latino workers who earn 40% more than their non-union counterparts. For black women, belonging to a union means they earn 24% more than their non-union peers. The study also finds unions improve safety on the job, provide for better health benefits, paid sick time, and benefit communities at large. Unions increase wealth for everyone and close racial wealth gaps. Union workers are more likely to have 401k benefits plans, and they're twice as likely to have a defined benefit pension. These are the facts. It's also a reality that women, and especially black women, are better at organizing. I learned in my training as a labor organizing that the more women of color in a workplace there is, the higher your likelihood of winning an election. Yes, of course they are. Can you link that article? Sure. This is the heart of my politics. I care about racial injustice. I care about women, gender oppression. But I also know that I am better off in a union. So it's a win fucking win. The only people that lose when we form unions is the capitalist class, the fucking rich. So I can make myself better off, and I can make sure there's equity as well at the same fucking time. And me trying to be like, no, I don't want to do a union because I'm a white man and I'm going to out-compete those other groups is not true. Non-union men make less per week than union women. Unions work. Now, does it fix everything? Is it the only thing that we have to do? No. But the single greatest intervention you can make is solidarity by a class. That's the fucking facts. Universalism works if you care about disparity. If it's more than a virtue signal, if you actually want to make people's lives actually better, labor solidarity, class solidarity is the organizing principle. And it's also how you get white men to buy into it.
Historical geoguessr. Looks like we're at...
It's actually how you get white men to buy in. Is when they realize it's not a zero-sum game. And this is what really frustrates me, is it's not bad to have white men buying into solidarity. Zoran is winning because he has a really good support among young white men. White men are supporting, and men in general are supporting Zoran. And It's not just politically. Choice for New York City mayor if voting today. Among conservatives from Fox News, Zohran Mamdani, 23% of conservatives are supporting Zohran. 23% of self-described conservatives are supporting a Muslim socialist. So real universality automatically includes intersectionality? Exactly. Exactly. Real universality is intersectionality, but it also makes me better off too. That's the power of solidarity. We are greater as the sum of our parts. This is what I have been trying to explain to people. This is what I've been trying to explain from the beginning, is that solidarity is not a zero-sum game. It is not a game where I need to lose for you to win. Are you talking about the words or the political movements that you get off track here, man? Wait, me? I've always said that this is the reality. This has always been what I believed. I've always taken some of these, the arguments about racial equality and gender oppression seriously, but I also study what works. And what times have I ever not acknowledge those things? Jordan Peterson is dying from mold? Wouldn't any movement require class traitors / suicide though? It's zero sum for some in some aspects. Yes, there will be bourgeois class traitors. But a white guy working a welding job is not a class traitor. A class traitor is a capitalist who is nonetheless working against the interests of their class. Just like a cop is a class traitor working against the interests of their class. All right, let's go back to Trump's gayest moments.
This is the final nail in the coffin. Trump on Wendy Williams in 2012.
I work really long hours, and my boyfriend is starting to think that I may be cheating on him.
Whoa, are you cheating?
I am not, Donald. How do I assure him that when I'm at work, I'm actually doing work and not someone else? Now, Donald.
Like, Donald Trump, you're a notorious fucking cheater. You know, could you give advice to this normal person?
I'm going to let you answer first. And your wife is a businesswoman, so I'm sure she works late sometimes as well.
But I think if he has that in the back of his mind, I mean, do you love him that much?
Absolutely.
Can you live without him?
No, I cannot.
This is the happiest I have seen this man. He should have just remained a fucking TV personality. I'm telling you, this is why I said, like, the best possible outcome would have been for him to go to prison for January 6th. And then we just basically make it seem like he's still president. Like, we build a fucking White House for him. Okay. 24/7 cameras. We just tell him he's president. Okay. And he's just constantly playing out the roles without any sort of like real presidential power. It would be the greatest piece of television ever created. It would bring back people. All the cable cutters would go back to TV to watch it. Yeah, the Truman Show, but Trumpman Show, you know? Fuck it. You could literally tell him that he's no longer president, but he can like act as the president on TV 24/7. I think even that would be fine.
Because, you know, if he has that now in the back of his mind, that'd be...
I personally don't think Donald Trump wanted to be president. I think that the 2016 campaign was an attempt for him to start his own Fox News competitor, Trump Network. And he was just trying to like make money. And then he was going to sit outside politics like a grifter. He wanted to be Julian Streicher for America, which is like, he wanted to make America's Der Stürmer. And he wanted to tap into the populist right wing and create a new, because like Fox News was so integrated with the corporate Republicans, he thought there was an opportunity to create a television network, a media empire that was a competitor to Fox, And that's what he ran for. And then, whoopsie doopsie daisy, he was too in touch with the Republican grassroots, and he fucking won.
Trouble.
It's only going to
For
get
the
worse.
future, I'm saying.
How long have you been with him?
12 years.
And how old are you?
32.
And why boyfriend? He's not.
Yeah, exactly.
That's another show.
Oh, well, here's what I would suggest. You tell him that you're working late, and he better not, to prove his point, try to roll up at the job and do something embarrassing like, where is she, or cruise the parking lot.
Okay.
If he can't take your word for it, then you know what? After 12 years, maybe this is not the guy for you. And if we have...
Unplug his controller is perfect. Like, just unplug his controller like your little bro, you know? He just thinks he's playing, but he's not actually playing. But it doesn't matter. He's deriving satisfaction out of it anyway. You know what I mean? It's just such a perfect win-win. Like, we could have had that. We could have fucking had that, dude. Justice is served, okay? And he's so happy that, like, his fucking Heil Hitler brigade won't even get mad because they see how happy he is. And they're just like, well, he's so happy. Like, who am I to say he should still be the president? You know what I mean? And you can have, like, visitation. You can have, like, fucking people that we just lie to him that are, like, world leaders come and, like, meet him and stuff. You could, like, introduce guys that claim to be, I don't know, Mark Rutte or whatever, because he doesn't know any different. He doesn't know any of these fucking people. You know what I mean? You could even have him, because he's old as fuck. You could have him basically have, like, Kim Jong-un impersonators show up and, like, talk to him like he's actually the fucking leader of North Korea. And he's not going to know any better. And I would love to see, like, whatever the private conversations we'd have with these people like Benjamin Netanyahu, thinking he's actually talking to the Benjamin Netanyahu.
Have another show on why it is you want to get married and he hasn't married you, then maybe they need to break up.
And you know what? I'm looking at you. You will have no trouble getting guys.
That's crazy. You will have no trouble getting guys. Looking at you. Amazing. Trump today did another gay press conference.
You're going to pick a movie actor with a bad build, okay? A nice face, but a bad body. And he said, I can't have these guys because he's a tough cookie, and he knew exactly what it took. He knew what a boxer's body was. So they brought him one, and I won't tell you who it was.
I'm so happy that one chatter was trying to be like, oh, dude, I hate that people use, like, zesty as a pejorative when they just want to say gay and they're trying to be homophobic, because it took us down memory lane, like a beautiful trip down memory lane where we're just looking at Trump's gayest moments compilation.
But it was a big
I love that Hassan is, like, pushing back so hard on the attempted revival of, like, panopticon wokeness, you know?
Move on over, or we'll move on over you. Move on over, or we'll move on over you. Move on over, or we'll move on over you. Oh, the movement's moving on.
Universality is not the same as intersectionality. It would not fix the fact that black people and women are constantly undercared for at hospitals because of medical racism and misogyny. By providing free healthcare, the industry will not magically start properly treating women and people of color. Yeah, except when we say universality, we're referring to a political campaign. There's two parts in politics, which is, I'm glad you brought that up because it is a very important point that I don't think that a lot of the people making the critique are aware of. You campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. In other words, what you're saying is, when I'm saying things to convince people to vote for me, I'm saying them in the most open, poetic, motivating, universal method I can to get people to vote for me so I get 50% plus one. And then when I govern, there are specific policies I enact in order to achieve those loftier terms that we campaigned in. Now, if you actually follow Bernie Sanders' campaign, you understood when he said Medicare for all, he was campaigning in poetry. But if you actually read the laws that were being proposed, if you actually read the policy white papers that were being proposed, they specifically acknowledged things like gaps in the maternal mortality between black women and white women. They understand the gaps and the hospital deserts, both in rural areas and in inner city poor areas. And the purpose of Medicare for All is to actually create equity by pumping money into the actual treatment of sick people and not the treatment of profitable people, which completely changes the calculus of the entire medical industry. Because if you're paid by actually treating sick people and sick people alone, then it's going to make the medical industry incentivized to go into places where there are deserts so that they can treat sick people. And then on top of it, there was also a program for reforming the medical school system, to expand medical schools, to expand the provision of training and this is another specific Bernie point, specific funding for traditionally and historically black colleges and universities, to expand the number of medical practitioners who come from marginalized communities by making their education and medical training tuition free, so that you wouldn't just have us yelling at white doctors that they're being racist, which they definitely need to hear, but you're actually going to have black doctors and black nurses in there. Like, that was the whole point of Medicare for All. It was not just, we're gonna like just say, okay, we're treating everybody equally and leave the gaps. The specifics of the program were specifically designed to go into the places that are underserved and build the infrastructure to make them served at a standard that was no worse than what white people were getting. That's what universality is. Universality is exactly targeting the places that are underserved with extra resources so that they can catch up. And you do it under the banner of universality because it will also involve helping other people who are traditionally in advantageous groups but are still nonetheless themselves underserved. There are white people without health insurance now. And so Medicare for All would help that guy, which means that he would be incentivized to support the program for the long term. Anyway, this is just the difference between political campaigns and governing. And there's a lot of people who don't understand that you have to win in order to govern. But I'm not saying that we should allow fucking any kind of, if the program that they're proposing does not make provision for directly addressing inequity, then it's not a socialist program. Period. That was the huge reason he never broke into black vote. He refused to specify his message to that community, but in front of the POC community is still very understandably weary of universal programs since they've been historically excluded from them from time to time. We need to specify messaging. Here's where I disagree with some of the critiques. Bernie Sanders did not lose because of messaging. Bernie Sanders was popular and is popular with poor people and with black voters. The problem is he doesn't have the institutional connections to black communities. It's not just messaging. That is a liberal opinion. It is the fact that he hasn't done the work in black and brown communities because he's from Vermont, the second whitest fucking state. And so he hadn't done it. He hadn't shown up. He hadn't earned trust. And I don't like Clyburn and I don't like Cuomo, but the reason why the machine is because they did that. They showed up in those communities for a long time and they gave people resources. They provided for people. They made relationships. Saying it's messaging will cause us to lose again. Plenty of people of color like Bernie. They're not connected to Bernie. And that's where we failed. Not being in the third spaces, not being part of the black community, not being in black churches, not being in black community groups. That's our fault. Our fault. If it was messaging, that's easy shit. That would be fucking easy. I wish it was messaging. It's the fact that we were not integrated into those communities. There's a lot of reasons for it. Part of it is white leftist fault. Part of it is also the way that the Red Scare worked. Part of it is the way the Democratic Party shut out more radical voices. Part of it is how the machine has filtered out left-wingers from access. Like, You know what I mean? Like, this is, it's silly to say it's only messaging. And in fact, I think that's why you should go and watch the FD Signifier video, because he pushes back against the idea that it is messaging. He pushes back on the idea that it's just we needed to tweet slightly differently. That would be fucking easy. Those that use the racism argument, what the fuck is their alternative to their misunderstanding? I mean, I don't think they're really offering alternatives. And like, I'm not saying this because I know everything about the black community. I have tremendous humility about what I can do to make inroads. I'm just noting what I believe to be the case. Right? And I don't think messaging is the right answer. It's an easy and convenient answer because messaging is easy. You just slightly change what you're saying and then you're going to win. I think if we do that, if we go into 2028 with that as our mentality, we will lose and we'll deserve to lose. We need to elevate socialists of color, and we need to put ourselves in communion with these marginalized communities, and places like protesting ICE raids is exactly where we can show ourselves as allies to these communities. Not where we put ourselves first, but where we build trust. You can't ask people to stand up for you if you haven't stood up for them. And messaging isn't enough. That's my opinion. If you disagree with that, fine. But I think it's really true. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is what speaks to me. And I don't like the way, if I could be completely honest, I don't like the way that leftists online talk about the black community. Like, I just, it bothers me.
So today I bring you the latest news regarding the supposed peace talks between what looks to be just Russia and the US, like proposing peace to Ukraine without Ukraine actually participating at all. And I find this absolutely wild because it really lays bare how bankrupt intellectually, morally, in every possible way the fanatical Russian Z-types are, especially the majority of them who have also postured as pro-Palestine, because the way that this is being described by sources close to these machinations is as a Russian West Bank-style occupation of the occupied parts of Ukraine. That's right. The US is offering a supposed peace deal to Russia that it is favorably comparing to the Israeli occupation of the West Bank. As this article says, the US and Russia are set to suggest a West Bank-style occupation of Ukraine as a way of ending the war, according to the London Times. The suggestion was put forward during discussions between President Donald Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, and his Russian counterparts, a source of insight into the
You can't slightly change a message that doesn't make sense in the first place. I feel like people who are like, I feel like people are talking about black and brown communities without actually looking at the evidence, right? Right? Like like if you look at all of the data, black voters support Medicare for all. Like, it's just reality. There are, by far and away, this is something that FD Signifier said in his video, the most progressive subset of the population. Thank
U.S.
you, HR
National
Beck.
Security
Appreciate
Council
you.
told the paper. Witkoff, who also serves as the White House Middle East envoy, reportedly backs the suggestion, which the U.S. believes will solve the issue of the Ukrainian constitution prohibiting giving up territory without organizing a referendum, while Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has rejected any notion of ceding territory. The new occupation proposal may lead to a truce following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, which began in February 2022. So they are straight up favorably using the West Bank as a model of like what should be happening in other places now. They are referring to it as a model to be followed in this case. So basically, the compromise that they are suggesting is that Russia gets to...
And there's an article that I wanted to show you in Public Citizen, which talks about this very point that I've been making. So I don't want you to think this is me just making shit up, because I'm a white leftist who is scrambling to come up with some sort of reaction to criticism. This is something that's been around for a long time. Medicare for All is a racial equity policy. More than 150,000 Americans have died from coronavirus pandemic and millions more are infected. This is published back in 2020, right? Systemic racism, a complicated set of factors, but communities of color at greater risk of contacting COVID-19. Medicare for All would guarantee that everyone in the U.S. can get the health care they need regardless of their ability to pay. They would be able to receive that care with the doctor or hospital of their choice, as there would be no more out-of-network care. Ilhan Omar described it as Medicare for All as a racial equity policy. True justice does not discriminate based on their race, ability, or socioeconomic status. Medicare for All is what true justice looks like. Medicare for All directs research and resources to improve health equity at state and national levels for medically underserved populations.
Too often, when we propose bold solutions to tackle the biggest racial disparities that exist, we are dismissed, smeared, and attacked by pundits and status quo politicians. There seems to be a disconnect between the policies that are going to create a positive impact on people's lives and what political leaders and pundits think communities need. So here's the truth. I believe Medicare for All is a racial equity policy. And I'll tell you why. 44% of minorities in my state of Minnesota are uninsured. Most people who are uninsured are low income and people of color, and they are uninsured twice as much as their white counterparts. As I often say, Minnesota is the best state for everyone unless you are a person of color. And the reason we continue to have these disparities is because we're invisible. We're often not heard and rendered voiceless. Our issues oftentimes are spoken about as silos. I was recently at a picket line for school support staff, and there was a career school support staff who was there for 30 years. She's never made more than $30,000 a year. And her health premiums, as she said, is the same as her colleagues who are making $150,000 to $250,000 a year. So our needs as members of marginalized communities should not continue to be invisible. The solution to this problem isn't to create more means-tested programs where working people of color have to jump through loopholes just to get health care, vouchers, or cash assistance. Because we all know we've tried that before. We've tried that with the welfare reform system, which led to an increase in poverty, in severe poverty in this country. The solution to racial disparity is justice, a true justice, which is universal. True justice does not discriminate against someone because of their race, ability, or economic status. Medicare for All is what true justice looks like. Medicare for All will fully guarantee health care as a human right. No questions asked. Medicare for All directs research and resources to improve health equity at state and national level for medically underserved populations. So I don't want to hear people continue criticizing our movement for saying that we're not focused on racial justice. The actual policies were advocating for will address racial disparities in the most concrete way by making healthcare a human right for all Americans, regardless of their race. I am really excited for the opportunity for us to continue to talk about what Medicare for All is, what it would mean for the people that we represent, and how it will usher in a new kind of way for Americans to finally believe that because you are sick, you are not going to be bankrupt. And so I'm excited to be.
I think the reason why I bring up Ilhan Omar discussing it is because if your political movement is telling you, no, we shouldn't support a universal program because it's not going to fix disparities, I think that person is not a socialist, and I don't think they're an ally. It's one thing to, as a voter, to be confused and concerned, but if you're going to offer yourself as a political pundit and work against a woman of color like Ilhan Omar, who is directly involved with the creation of the policy and is aware of those gaps and is directly in Bernie Sanders' ear as they develop the program, who is a black mother herself, who knows about the disparities in the medical industry and medical profession, who knows about the causes of these programs, and you're lying on her in favor of who? Joe Biden? Does Joe Biden have a program that's going to, address these programs? Like, it's not even, and that's the political context, right? The political context is you have an incredibly exciting 33-year-old Democratic Socialist candidate called Zohran Mamdani with a degree in African American Studies and who is focused and dedicated to alleviating the injustices in our society. And you're pretending like these people are not focused on equity? I mean, that's just bad fucking faith at this point. I'm sorry, but that's the case. Racial justice organizations have been on the front lines on improving the healthcare systems, and many organizations, including the NAACP, the Black Women's Health Imperative, the League of United Latin American Citizens, and the United We Dream, strongly support Medicare for All. Many of these organizations have been fighting for healthcare justice for decades, including the National Medical Association, which itself was formed in part due to the racist policies of the AMA not allowing black doctors to join at the turn, playing a key role in the passage of the original Medicare and Medicaid programs. Communities of color need a healthcare system that rectifies these long-standing structural biases and challenges. Medicare for All is that system, the groups wrote in a letter to Congress. Medicare for All's universal health care would support the health and economic security of patients of color, including finally providing full health coverage for all reproductive health services, including abortion, alongside controlling the cost of prescription drugs, both glaring affordability and access issues for low and moderate income patients of color. The Movement for Black Lives, a coalition of groups representing members of the black community, has explicitly called for universal health care through Medicare for All. Medicare for All is just one step in the broader fight for racial justice and must be part of a broader movement to address racism in healthcare and throughout society, but the policy would be an essential step in addressing healthcare disparities and moving toward healthcare justice. I want you to understand that this has always been Hassan's policy. This has always been my policy. This has always been the policy of the people that are fighting for Medicare for All. It has never been about ignoring racial equity or just, setting things up as they are now, giving a program that pays for everyone's healthcare and letting injustice fester. That has never been true. Intersectionality has always been the core of the issue. And it's been argued. This is not a new article. It's been argued for 8 fucking years. So the people that are distracted or confused at this point, if you're a political pundit, why are you confused? How are you confused? And how dare you pretend like Ilhan Omar is ignoring women of color's concerns? Like, what the fuck? We talked about campaigning in prose, or excuse me, campaigning in poetry and governing in prose. And every good campaign has different messages tailored to the communities they're talking to. If you have just one message, then you're not taking advantage of your entire brain.
The National Guard troops in Washington, D.C.
Deployed by the president as he takes charge of law enforcement in the nation's capital.
Will other major cities be next?
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm Maurice Dubois.
I'm John Dickerson.
The police department in Washington says violent crime in the city this year is down 26%, homicide alone down 11%, and robberies down 28%.
One number that is rising is the crime fighting force, with the president sending in federal agents to help the police. And today, 800 National Guard troops started taking up positions.
Despite the falling crime rate in the city of 700,000 people, the president has declared a crime emergency and taken charge of the D.C. police. Justice correspondent Scott McFarland is in Washington. So, Scott, how was day one with a new sheriff in town?
Hey, Maurice, this first ever takeover of its kind began with 23 arrests and the investigation of another murder. Under law, it can only last 30 days. But the concern is, how does this initiative end?
National Guard troops arrived at the Armory in southeast Washington, D.C. today, 4 miles from the White House. They'll join nearly 900 federal agents and officers that have taken posts on neighborhood streets, helping local police who are now under the authority of the Trump administration. In D.C.'s Anacostia neighborhood, Ron Moten says crime has long plagued his community, but says he and others are skeptical this is a good idea.
They're tired of violence. I get it. But my only caution is one thing can lead to the next thing. You can take over our police department today. And
I love the idea that Biden or Hillary were talking about how black people don't have fair access to care. LOL. I mean, like, that's the thing that doesn't track, right? Which is like, you could say that Bernie Sanders' messaging or his campaign sucked, especially in South Carolina, which is objectively true. But then there's no secondary analysis, which is like, well, why did Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden get their vote? Their messaging was even worse. Their messaging was, I don't trust Medicare for all. I like private health insurance. The crime bill guy, the mass incarceration guy, the guy that made your student loans non-dischargeable in bankruptcy. And the answer is because the machine politicians had better connections to the community and there was higher trust. It wasn't about the specific contours of the policy, which their policies were way worse than Bernie Sanders, especially for black and brown people. So when you say it's messaging, do you think Hillary Clinton won from messaging? Like, it doesn't make sense. Jim Crow Joe won from messaging?
Wake up and you take over our city.
They may not give it back.
They might not give it back.
Top Justice Department officials met with D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser today while the White House defended the 30-day takeover.
We are removing as many criminals from the streets, and we are cleaning up D.C. as best as we can and working with the Metropolitan Police Department to do that.
Darrell Gaston has seen the violence up close.
Those are bullet holes up there?
Yeah, bullet holes. This whole window had to be replaced right here.
A recent car chase and shooting damaged the outside of Gaston's restaurant. He welcomes an increased law enforcement presence, but says the community wants a longer-term plan to curb crime.
We can always use more police, right?
So CBS News is going in there to justify the deployment of American troops by finding one guy who supports it. Meanwhile, I saw polling where it was like 80% of people were against it in DC.
But I think having police officers that are from the community, that are trained locally, is much different than having a federal police that's not trained in community policing.
Gaston also worries President Trump's words
We're getting rid of the slums, too. We have slums here. We're getting rid of them.
feed a stereotype about D.C.
D.C. in 2025, it's way different and safer than the D.C. that I grew up in.
Scott, what exactly, though, is the mission for the National Guard and troops that are on the streets?
In this unique circumstance, the National Guard has law enforcement power. But, John, the Pentagon is indicating they will not be making arrests, may not even be carrying guns on the street, and will be helping police, holding people for later arrest or doing logistical work.
And, Scott, the president is considering a rapid response force for other cities. How would that work?
Yeah, there's a report in Washington that there was under consideration a quick response force, 2 of them in the country, to quell civil unrest elsewhere in the nation. The Pentagon's pushing back on that, calling it pre-decisional, and saying they're not going to comment, Maurice, on leaked documents.
Okay, Scott McFarland in D.C. tonight. Thank you.
We're also teetering on the boundaries of semantics of messaging, noun, messaging, verb, and messaging communications. Yes, but the point that I'm making is it's not messaging. It's not Bernie Sanders didn't sell his policies good with the message he put on television. The reason his message didn't resonate is because he didn't have the community connections. That's why I completely disagree with the messaging people, because they sound like liberal consultants to me. Bernie Sanders lost because he failed to grassroots organize and bet his campaign in community organizations that have trust and sway. And it's so fucking easy to pretend like it's like, and this is one question I have for the messaging people. What should he have said? What should Bernie Sanders have said? What would be the message that would have worked? Margaret Hoover, I believe, is either the granddaughter or the great-granddaughter of Herbert Hoover. And she has never done anything in her fucking life but be a gigantic Nepo baby. And she was given her own show on PBS, The Firing Line, which is a homage to to William F. Buckley's show, The Firing Line. This is the way media works. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't know. But in politics in particular, if somebody is hired into communications out of college, they are a Nepo baby 100% of the time. I'll say that again. If somebody gets into politics and out of college, they get hired into communications or media, they are a Nepo baby 100% of the time.
She has the audience of her local.
By the way, that's why they fucking hate social media. They hate the fact that I can make my own stream and make my own commentary, and because people agree with it, they can come watch me, and I'm not being gatekept. That's why they despise Hassan. That's why they despise me. Because we just made our own shit, and we're not being, I'm not being like shoveled stuff from the DNC. Like, they're not shoving people my way to build up my credibility. I have to scrap for everything I get because they want the communication to be controlled by people who are reliant on them for their jobs. Because if you're a Nepo baby bitch, you're never going to do anything against the wishes of your boss because you're an unqualified for any real job. So they pay you generously. They give you these positions. They make you famous so that you are a fucking tool. Media is the new priestly class. The rulers, second born, or ne'er-do-wells are sent into it to be rid of them and do the easy part of enforcing this. Correct. That is 100% correct. The media is the priestly class of the modern society. I mean, you're so fucking right. That's exactly what it is. And I'm a heretic. I am a rabble-rousing heretic that they want to get rid of. You are 100,000 quadrillion %. Excellent analogy.
The local leadership in Washington, D.C., but she is also there's a total shift between that and also between her saying, actually, we'll take all the help we can get because we do want security in the city, and if we have extra resources, how can we deploy these resources in a way that best streamlines, in a way that will provide more security for the people of our city? The real question, I think, if you step back, is this concern about the normalization of sending federal troops into U.S. cities. And most Americans...
By the way, chat, that was CNN's audio. I thought it was me, so I changed the earbud I was using. Also, I want to make sure I balance out which earbud I use so I don't destroy hearing in one ear. I want to make sure I destroy them evenly. So please remind me from now on at about 2.5 hours into the stream to switch earbuds. I would appreciate that. Be parasocial for my ears. But like, she's such a conservative tool, and also centrist Democrats. She is right about one thing, though. Centrist Democrats are not standing up to Trump. Like, they agree with it. They agree with the fascist takeover. They're enabling it.
To the city of Beijing.